problem of anger is an attitude, attribute, character, climate, complexion, condition. Now let me just go back into this way. Um, if you have a temper and you don't know how to really at a time in your life think of putting a check to it, regardless of how it come, when the outbursts come, it will bust off. I love the way the writer writes this by using a wall as an example. In ancient times, city walls were crucial for protection. We read some of that in the book of Joshua when Jericho walls was used as a kind of protection, and the Israelites had to, under the instruction of God, break the wall. The wall of Jericho fell. There is some kind of a wall in every country, either a physical wall or where they will say that this is the borderline between this state here and that, between this country here and that country here. But the Bible is saying here that if there is no control, if you don't have a way of fencing it around, using this wall is very important. And this is what I want to bring your attention to. The Bible says it's like a city without wall. Now, a wall in a city protects the city from anyone coming into the country without invitation. Coming into the city without invitation. There you will see thieves comes in, you will see rapists comes in, you will see all kinds of people that normally will not come, that rather will not be invited come into the city. But when there is a wall, it will be like a building that has a door. There is a saying in my country that my mother always loud to me and say that it is only a house that have no door that a madman can enter. When a house have a door and it has a lock, anybody cannot just come into your house anyhow. They will have to knock, which means you have to give them an access. You will give them an access to come in there, even when you don't invite them from ahead, but you have to grant them an access at the entrance. You have to invite them in. You can shut them out if you want to. You can let them in if you want to. And this is what temper is. Temper is what we welcome within us. When certain things that needed to have been done to control, to take a step of controlling it, we didn't get to do that. Then it comes up in a kind of a way. It becomes an outburst. Now, when it becomes an outburst, it messes things up. It does not say, it does not correct what we intend to correct at the time. It actually creates a complete mess. A complete mess. So now the Bible is saying when a city is without wall, then that city cannot be protected from invaders or wild animals. A city without walls will become vulnerable and, as a matter of fact, defenseless, which will symbolize chaos, disorder, and confusion. Now, the imagery that is used here, like in the book of Nehemiah, if you remember the book of Nehemiah, where the rebuilding of Jerusalem wall signifies restoration and security, the broken walls metaphorically represent a lack of self-control. That's what it means. Lack of self-control, leaving one open to spiritual and moral danger. So which means if you don't have a kind of a defense in your life, spiritually and physically, you become vulnerable in every state that you are. You'll become a target for controllers. People will take advantage, and they will begin to use you in a manner. There had to be a way that you will say, no, this door is closed. You're not going to be able to. It's always good to know that you are in charge of yourself. You are in charge of your destiny. You are in charge of things around you. Because if you are not, then the society will tell you what to do. And this is what social media had done for us, ladies and gentlemen. As much as it becomes a blessing, it has also becomes a curse. Because there are so many people who are living their life by the standard of what the social media has gotten them to. So they have this mentality that have set them to believe that there is no way they can get anything functionally done well in the morning or night without visiting social media. Now, the Bible is saying here clearly, the broken wall in every city is an invitation to confusion, chaos, disturbances. The imagery also connects to the fall of Jericho, like I mentioned earlier on. But the Bible now used this word and said, so is a man who does not control his temper. Paul mentioned in the book of Galatians about what is called self-control. There are some steps that you will have to take that nobody has to take for you. There are some steps that you have to take that nobody will have to do for you. So when it comes to this self-control that the Bible is referring to here, there are some states in your life that you will have to stand up and do certain things in the way. If I fail, I'll come back again and get it done. But if I make it, it's going to be okay. But I'm not going to be afraid of failure. Because of that, I avoid to do certain things that I need to do. What the Bible is saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is very clear. How good are you in controlling your temper or controlling your nature in some areas of your life? It could be your mouth. When you're angry, you just... It could be your appetite. When you see food, you have no control. It could be sex. It could be spending money unnecessarily, just buying things. Well, that would be... I'm falling into this category. But the problem here is this. There had to be a way that you will have to draw a line and say, nah, you must have a control over certain things in your life. The Bible is using this as referring to a self-control, which is an essential for living a life that honors God. Self-control is essential for living a life that honors God. The lack of temperance can lead to destructive behavior, as we see in the lives of many people who have, by anger, say some things that becomes a meme, that becomes something that people will not stop talking about, and they said those words when they were angry. Now they cannot say that, oh, that's not what I meant. I meant to say something else, but it comes out to be this. So the reality is this. The Bible is saying here, the day you fail to take control of that, the day you fail to acknowledge self-control, it is going to be the beginning of a downfall. Remember the story of King Saul. This is what led to his downfall. Unchecked anger led to the downfall of King Saul. And these can lead to destruction. The New Testament frequently warns against anger, urging believers to be slow to anger and quick to listen. That's what the brother of Jesus tells us in the book of James chapter 1, verses 9 through 20. Jesus exemplified perfect self-control even when provoked. Demonstrating how believers should respond to anger-inducing situation. Do you realize that when you're angry, you don't think right? When you're angry, you have no control over anything that is in you. Your demeanor will change, your word, and once your demeanor change, your word is going to change. So what the Bible is saying to us here in this book of Proverbs chapter 25, verse 28, is reminding us, ladies and gentlemen, that the worst thing a man can do to himself is not to take control of his mind. That's the worst thing a man can do to himself, when you don't have a control over your life. I take this very important now. As the older you get in life, there are things that you see, because not everything that needed a response. No. And it's not everything that needed an explanation. It may just be one word, no, yes. And you're not saying that in a very sarcastical way. You're saying that because that's all it takes at that time. Because if you should alter what is in your mind, it might ruin things to people. So when next you find yourself in that state of confrontation, or somebody say something that is not right about you, gather your thoughts together before you are able to say that. Otherwise, you might be saying something that you may regret later on. And make sure that you hear very well before you respond.